Welcome to another episode of Gimmicky Tech, the series where I review underappreciated archetypes while also recommending whack tech for the deck. This week, or this month I guess, it's time to flash back to Duel Terminal and talk Solitaire. That's right, it's time to talk about the slightly better successor of Gusto, Ritual Beast, a deck with less fans than its predecessor, goddamn fucking Gustos. Hatred for bad battle flows aside, I love Ritual Beast, and no, it's not because of funny, ulti cannon combos. I don't even know how to do the combo properly, to be honest. For me, the appeal of Ritual Beast comes from rolling the chance to completely brick, or to go full ham, while combining it with the banish mechanic, a mechanic I'm quite fond of. I mean, I also like how it challenges me as a combo deck, but it's mainly the 50-50 thing, as I am a bit partial to gambling. With that said, the archetype is still bad. Well, kinda. And I want to talk about why that's the case before making a case for people, why people like you should play this archetype over Speeds.deck. So let's cover the history of the archetype first before we get into my reasoning for why you should play this archetype. Releasing back all the way in, I think, 2014 with the Secret Forces, this set, the set that broke the meta, really. I mean, come on, it had Necros, which was like the second coming of Ritual after Geishi's. But, there was also Ritual Beasts, who did something. Because it was like the middle child. Because the other one was like Yusenju's. And this was first wave Yusenju's, so it didn't have its good cards yet. So, yeah, this was... Ritual Beast was like the mediocre middle child of the set. It wasn't the disappointing tiny child no one likes, but it wasn't the big, awesome brother that everyone wanted to play. It was kind of like in the middle, nothing really going for it. I mean, it had the base cards, but it lacked the wing condition, so the deck didn't really do anything amazing until Cross Souls came out and yet again blew away the meta. This not only boosted Midolchi, or was this first wave Midolchi? I think this was first wave Midolchi, actually. So I don't know why I said it boosted Midolchi. I'm pretty sure Cross Souls was first wave Midolchi, which doesn't matter because it still dominated the XYZ game because it had a really strong card. It also gave us the first Ghost Girl, being Ghost Ogre, and it gave us the real Ritual Beast monster, boss monster, and the real Ritual Beast starter. Both these cards would help with giving Ritual Beast a real win condition, and a Cannon Hawk enable, respectively, launching Ritual Beast into at least tier 3, from what I have gathered from people who were playing around that period of time. The deck had a few tops here and there, but following ulti Cannon Hawk limit, the deck kind of dropped off the face of the earth, while also starting the free ulti Cannon Hawk movement. The deck won't only lose relevance due to the limit, it also lost players due to how slow the deck is and how reliant it is on certain 2 cards combos to do literally anything. So the deck was eventually outpaced by newer decks. While the link helped with some consistency issues and lets you jump into ulti Gaia Pelio easier, it wasn't until ulti Cannon Hawk Unlimit the deck became relevant for 5 minutes until everyone realized the deck doesn't work without free Gold Sark, which was limited due to some Thundery boys that we won't talk about. The biggest problem with the deck, if you haven't gotten my drift yet, is the fact that it needs to make a Ritual Beast fusion turn 1 or you're screwed. The deck lives or dies by hitting that 2-card combo starter. Foolish Bell and Gold Sark limit array hurts this deck, and the fact Terraforming limit also hurts the deck a bit. We'll get to that later. But there's only one card I would call consistently good, and you can only play it at 3 in a 40-card deck, so have fun drawing it turn 1. Another problem the deck has is how fragile it is. While the deck is known for its combo shenanigans, its combos are very fragile and can be ruined by a single negate at any point during the combo. Despite the massive flaws, the deck does pack some awfully strong cards. Outside of its triple fusion being peak Konami design and soft once per turns being a fun oversight, its post support has consistently improved the archetype in a rare streak of confidence by Konami, and still has people like me staying around, unlike Gustos, who I admit had a really competent wave of support this time, but that doesn't stop its history of other cards being garbage. Except one. We'll talk about that when we get to Gustos. Anyway, let's talk about the Richer Beast archetype now. I'm gonna do all the tamers paired up with their respective spiritual beasts for the sake of it looking nice. And also, can I just talk about how good the name of the archetype is here real quick? The archetype is Ritual Beast, but half the cards are Spiritual Beast, and it still counts as a Ritual Beast monster because Ritual isn't spiritual. I just thought that was a really cool ruling around the archetype. But anyway, first up is Spiritual Beast Canahawk and Ritual Beast Tamer Elder, and both are necessary free-offs. Elder is a consistent playmaker after all, because after he's normal summon, he gives you another normal summon, which is essential. Canahawk is your archetypal gold sark. There is a once per turn, which is also soft, so Canahawking for a Canahawk is viable for Canahawk combo strats. I feel like there's no more explaining here since both are essential to the deck's gameplay. Next up is Lara and Apelio, and one of them is a one-off, and the other is a questionable free-off. Let's start with Lara and her one-off status, because if we were living in a pre-Zephyr world, she would be a two-off, but Zephyr exists, and who's just Lara, but for both Zephyr and Ritual Beast, and any sane Ritual Beast player will be playing a one-off of Zephyr due to another card we'll get to later. So just run one Lara and one Zephyr. For Apelio, I like to run him at 3 for him being a good beat stick, and the fact he can banish cards from the graveyard can be incredibly useful when paired up with Ulti Canahawk, but I've seen people run him at 2 or 1, so it's definitely a player-by-player basis kind of card. Either way, you can't go wrong with an Apelio in your deck. Next up is Wen and Pedalfin, and this is a 2-off and a 1-off. Wen would be a 3-off if we had Gold Sark back, but since we don't, she's better at 2 to reduce bricks, since she's just Lara for the banish zone. Pedalfin, on the other hand, will always be a 1-off. You simply don't want to see this card in your hand. Don't get me wrong, it's a great card in terms of removal, but there's a way to get into the grave, which we will talk about now. So since we already did Seth Pilliker, let's talk about her partner in crime, Rampangu. Oh, who cares? This penguin is the key setup card for the archetype. Being able to banish a fusion to dump a monster of the same type does wonders for this deck, especially if you know how to cheat it with the Ulti Canahawk loop. So preferably you want to dump Pedalfin via this effect for your loop, and the other option is Ulti Guy Pelio, who is a psychic, so there's an option for Tamer dumping. Run Rampingu at 3, because at any less is it's just a mistake. And you know what? While we're on the topic of Zephyr Ritual Beast, here's Zephyr Wendy. It's bad. You don't want to Pendulum summon it in Ritual Beast due to the fact that Archetype doesn't like being special summoned more than once, so Pendulum summoning ruins this deck, and its monster event isn't worth it. It's the one Ritual Beast card that's actually useless, and I wouldn't call it a Ritual Beast card, because it's a Zephyr card first, so technically it's a useless Zephyr card and irrelevant to this discussion. Moving on. The only remaining main deck monster is Spiritual Beast Tamer Winder, aka Gusto Winder, aka Wine's twin sister. Don't get me started on Charman's lore connections to Duel Journal. I personally like running her at 3 since she not only pulls double duty as a tamer and a spiritual beast, she floats into other spiritual beasts and tamers, including herself. She's incredibly useful for those brick hands since if your opponent doesn't have an out for her, her floats are incredibly strong, but since she only has the same only can be special summoned once restriction, meaning she can only float into herself once, I've seen people running her at 2, so it's your call to make on ratios for her. I personally like 3, but you do you. Moving on to extra deck monsters. Behold, the playmakers of the archetype, Ulti Canahawk and Ulti Kimmerfalcus, and yes, that was a Gusto Synchro, but because it was garbage, we reappropriated it and made it better. Take that, Gusto players! Anyway, Kimmerfalcus letting you have an extra normal summon by banishing a monster is pretty good, and let's be honest, you are probably summoning a tamer for that, so it doesn't matter if you banish a spiritual beast or not. That's a link into Ulti Canahawk, and who's very important to the deck. Like, we are talking about a loopable searcher who's a soft once per turn. There's a reason why people abuse the rulings to make this deck's reputation to be numero uno in solitaire gameplay. You just don't give people an abusable searcher and think nothing bad will come of it. This is how Airblades and Draco Powers came into existence, Konami. Regardless, he's a 3-off because any player worth their salt will know why, and Kimmerfalcus is a 2-off due to extra deck space. Oh, so eat shit, Gusto players. We got a better searcher than you. So the next two less important contact fusions, Ulti Pelfin and Ulti Apelio, are both 2-offs. Ulti Pelfin is just like its normal counterpart, a dump target. The spare copy is just there for occasions where you can't afford to do the Cannonhawk combo into their boss monster, so at least have a wall to defend yourself. Ulti Apelio is fine, I guess. Being able to make itself immune to everything when attacking is useful, but the keyword here is everything. This means it's unaffected by your stuff, which hurts because Cumifalcus boosts Ritual Beast monsters, so Apelio not being able to take advantage of that really hurts. Literally, they just needed to add the opponents to the part of the effect, but they didn't, and this card suffers because of it. Good job on future-proofing this archetype so far, Konami. We have soft once per turn searches, a card that can't be affected by anything, and we're about to hit the cream of the shitty card design decisions by Konami. So, you know how sometimes Konami just makes a really bad card? Like, it's so bad it's unplayable? Well, in some cases, very rare cases, Konami makes such a bad card decision that it kind of loops in on itself and becomes really fucking good. Well, that's what Ulti is. And do I need to tell you what's a 3-off? I mean, it's a psychic, so it's a viable target for Vampingu. It's easy to make at the end of your Cannonhawk combo due to Kimmerfalcus, and then he converts all those delicious hand resources you made from Ulti Cannonhawk into Omni Negates. Because as long as you have targets, this fucker will negate anything, and it's a non-once per turn. Let me repeat that for you. Non-once per turn, Omni Negate! This is like the peak of dumbass card design, and I love it. I know I sound angry, but I really do love it. But it's still like really shit card design. It's like banishing those Ritual Beasts is ruining the deck, because there are useful tools in this deck that bring back those banished resources, which will cover more in the back row lineup. If a Gusto player ever tries to tell you their deck is better than Ritual Beasts, just put them in their place with this card. In fact, just use Ulti Guy Pilo to bully any dual channel archetype, because unless their name is Quillfort, they got nothing on one non-once per turn Omni Negates. Jesus! I know I sound angry, I'm really not. I love this card, but fucking hell, it's like, I have to admit, it's stupid. It's really stupid. Okay, moving on to the 4 back row cards. I wouldn't call them useless compared to, well, Gusto's back row lineup. Pre-Dawn of Majesty, by the way. They have niche uses and depends on a player by player difference in my experience, unlike the Gusto cards where it's completely useless. With that disclaimer out of the way, our 2 spell options are Bond and Return. Bond is an interesting case since it's a quick play fusion, which seems unnecessary in a contact fusion deck, but you have to remember, the fusions can uncontact during your opponent's turn, so in practice, this is just a way to contact and save your monsters during your opponent's turn. I think this has its uses in cases where you're still learning the Cannonhawk combo and run out of resources to undo Cannonhawk, so you can just do it during your opponent's turn and make Ulti Guy Pilo then. As for Return, it's an interesting take on a trap we'll be getting to next. Being able to banish a monster from hand to special another banished monster, or a monster from your graveyard is cool, but with the special summon restriction, it's better being used during your opponent's turn, which Konami also thought so, because they made it a quick play for your convenience. I personally don't run either of these cards, but it doesn't mean they're bad cards. Run them if you think they would fit into your idea of a Ritual Beast deck. As for the traps, I like both these cards a lot more. Starting with Steeds, this is your form of spot removal outside of Pedalfin, but being able to pop monsters out to the number of ritual beasts you control is interesting. Play your cards right, and that's like 2 to 3 monster board going kablooey. As for Ambush, I think it's a better return since it lets you special Attainment and a Spiritual Beast from the Banish Zone or the Graveyard, which is a great comeback option, even a combo setup. When I play Ritual Beast, I make it my priority to search at least a copy of Speeds and Ambush just due to how useful they can be. Running these at 2 or 3 is a player choice really. I like to max it out though, just so there's more OT Gaia Pelia resources to burn. I don't really have a lot of recommendations here since I believe Ritual Beast is a deck that has the tools already to be good by itself, but it doesn't mean it could use a helping hand. So let's talk about a staple field spell for Ritual Beast, or should I say, field spells. So there's like 2 spells you could be considered running, with the first one being Oracle Zephyr. This is a one-off purely because it's there to search your one-off Zephyrilica, so I think of it as a second copy of the card. Okay, let's talk real business with Brain Research Lab being a free off for a very good reason. It's effectively your 3 extra copies of Elder. The counter effect doesn't matter at all. The extra summon of a Psychic is what fixes this deck. It's a mandatory free off in any self-respecting Ritual Beast build. Also, have fun finding copies of this card because it only has like 1 print all the way back in Ancient Prophecy, a 2009 pack. I still think it's a short-sighted decision to not reprint this in Secret Forces, considering how essential it is to the Ritual Beast deck playstyle. Moving on to 2 other cards I saw people say is essential to the Ritual Beast playstyle, Microcosmos and Dimensional Fissure, and I somewhat disagree with this statement. Is it good for the deck? Yes, but also no. I say yes, because the deck does like having its resources banished for the Cannonhawk combo, but I say no because there are cards that like having monsters in the graveyard to banish. Yes, there are ways to put them back in the graveyard thanks to Cannonhawk, but my second argument, there's also decks that benefit from having their cards being banished. So I don't like main decking the cards. I would recommend side decking them as floodgates for matchups where it could cripple your opponent. My last recommendation is Torrential Tribute. Why Torrential Tribute? Well, you see, Pelfin is immune to card destruction, so there's nothing stopping you from summoning Pelfin and activating a budget black hole on your turn. Okay, I admit it's stupid, but what's a Gimmicky Tech video without a gimmicky card? Anyway, here's my Ritual Beast deck list. Focus on trying to give Ritual Beast the best chance to do their combos. If you want something more competitive, you are probably stripping out most of these cards and running a bunch of hand traps and stun cards. Combo or stun, both are viable, and I encourage you to try out both to see which one befits you. Also, before I forget, Wind, the Wind Channeler, is also another recommendation due to the fact that this is a Wind Archetype, and that's a Wind Searcher. Just a mere oversight on my part that I am correcting. And talking about another mere oversight in my part, this card is a bit risky, mainly because Odigai Pilio isn't a wind, it's a light. So if you do use wine, you might be also locking yourself out summoning Odigai Pilio, which is your Omni Negate. So I don't know, maybe run it if you're going for a more stun focused build where you don't really need the focus on Odigai Pilio. But if you're running combo, I wouldn't, because Odigai Pilio then in that case would be your only massive stun option. So yeah, I would not run Wind if you're doing combo. Stun, that's an option you can try out. Ritual Beasts are interesting, and when I say interesting, I think there is no deck like it, and we'll never get a deck like it again. I mean, its gimmick is already more niche than any other Ritual deck, since it's a contact fusion, which only 3 other decks do, and it's arguably the best at doing it. Like, compared to Glad Beasts, who needs to contact out via battle, and then use Patience, who don't want to contact out, and then, there's ABCs. I don't know what ABCs do, but they're probably not that interesting anyway. I just feel like Ritual Beast takes the gimmick to its best potential by letting you uncontact at will and then make it easier to recontact. I mean, I won't deny, it was a little too advanced for its time, as it did cause a lot of issues, which led to limiting its key playmaker. But I don't think we'll ever get a deck like Ritual Beast. A deck that not only Ali feels unique, but it actually evolved a whole method of summoning without changing the master rules. But it's also so wonderfully advanced in its card design, and I love it for that. So for me, it hurts that the deck doesn't have the recognition it deserves, because it has that stigma of being a solitaire deck. I made this video because I wanted to help people see past that and help them see what I see in not only Ritual Beasts, but in a lot of deck builder sets like this. Because yes, I think the deck builder sets have the most creative strategies in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! But most of them get buried by the deck builder archetype with the more powerful gimmick. Moving forward, I want to talk more about deck builder archetypes, and I have plans to do so. But first, we need to pay a visit to Grandma and put her back into the ground. You're next, Gusto! So, end of the video time. Time to give you all the deets on what's going on. Well, this video was fun to do. You don't expect me to do these sort of videos on like a fortnight basis. You just happen to got lucky this time, where I just happen to have what's the word? A lot of free time, and I also happened to have the creative juices going. So it was very easy for me to just blaze through the Ritual Beast script right after we did the last video. Aliens, yes, that's how much I remember my own videos. Aliens. You may notice I tapped Gustos a lot in the script. Well, this was before I started playing around with the new support and saw a little bit of the promise. So in the Gusto video, I might go a little bit more easy on them, you may expect. So yeah, the next video is obviously Gusto, because I did say, especially at the end of this video, that Gusto was next. What's happening after Gusto is a real good question though. Like, I kind of wanted to use Senju's after Gusto, because then it kind of has like an unofficial win trilogy thing, and then we can kind of just eventually segue into Necros. I do want to do Necros at some point, because if I'm going to talk about Senju and the Raid on Retro Beast, I feel like I should do the entire Secret Forces set. Plus, I do need to play around with Necros at some point for an idea for an essay I might do and turn into a video later about Secret Forces as a set. But I also kind of want to maybe not do Senju's yet and jump into Security Force. I'm going to have to see what's going on there, see which one has more promise as a deck. But yes, thank you for tuning in. If you are interested in seeing more of these, please do subscribe. I do sometimes put the scripts for these videos out early on my Patreon. If you want to see them, that's, I believe, one of the $5 tiers. If you want to see my scripts, but it doesn't really matter. But and then I also try to upload other content. There's the Gimmick Cast, which I'm gonna have to update those thumbnails soon because it looks so bad and cheap, and probably why it doesn't get views. But I also tried to do other miscellaneous stuff like montages, small meme edits to entertain myself. There might be a Gusto and Idiot Plays comes out soon. Who knows? I'm trying to segue away from the Idiot Plays, but there might be a Gusto one coming out for it. Anyway, here's my Patreon. Once it loads, I don't really post on there often because there's not really many people there yet. But maybe once we get some people going, I'll put more focus on the Patreon. But most importantly, catch me on Twitch. I do try to stream frequently, and yeah, that's about it. I do try my best to stream on Twitch and do stuff. Recently been streaming me trying to get black borders on Balloon Towers Defense 6. Sometimes I also stream myself editing, and sometimes I just stream League of Legends. So yeah, I stream a lot of different things. But yeah, thank you. I'll say it again. Yeah, thank you for watching these videos. It really makes me feel good that there's people who watch these videos and find them informational. I feel like this Switcher piece isn't much as an information video as more of it's me trying to present a case to why you should play the deck, but I don't really mind. I honestly think Witcher Beast is an archetype that does need that more appreciation, and we'll definitely see me doing that trend again especially when we start doing more deck builder sets. I am going to be looking into which ones I want to do first. But right now, I just got a backlog of like scripts I want to do. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. I'm saying that for the third time now. And, well, bye.